we live in a world where very few people, at least in my experience, and certainly in my lifetime, when I was a child, very few of us are taught about money when we're young. For me, it was a taboo subject. I never asked my parents about money. They never talked about money. If I asked somebody else about money, I was reprimanded you never talk about money. You never ask anybody how much they make or anything around money. And yet we grow up in this world where we're expected to understand money. Money is one of the, I think, singular things that we need to interact with and do interact with every day of our lives as adults. We can go through our whole lives without ever loving someone or being in a relationship with someone. We can go through our entire lives without ever working in a specific field. But we have to interact with money if we want to have a roof over our heads, if we want to have a car and food and those kinds of things. So it is a very, very integral part of our lives. And yet we have no
This
idea
is
how to interact.
Unconditioning, Discovering the Voice Within, with Whitney Ann Jenkins. Hello and welcome to episode 101 of Unconditioning, Discovering the Voice Within, where I bring on guests and we talk about the inner authentic voice and the challenges and the rewards that come from following it. This episode, I have with me Pericles Rellas. Pericles has, for over 25 years, been a money mindset expert. He has helped people create a healthy relationship with money and themselves by creating a powerful money mindset so that they can live lives of joy, happiness, and fulfillment. Our relationship with money is a mirror of our relationship with ourselves and the world around us. In the process of creating a new relationship with money, people find a deeper sense of who they are and what they truly want in life: love, happiness, and success. With this philosophy, Pericles has helped tens of thousands of people create a new relationship with money and themselves, allowing them to have prosperity and freedom to live lives of joy and fulfillment. Understanding money's place in our lives is not just freeing, it's transformational. Access to this new relationship happens by understanding that we all have a financial thermostat that determines how much money we can earn and keep, as well as our thoughts, feelings, and emotions around money. I've really enjoyed this conversation with Pericles. Money mindset is something that I have personally been focusing on for the past several years, and the way that it does align with our authenticity and our self-worth and our ability to express our most inner voice. So here is my conversation with Pericles Rellas. I think that you're going to get a lot out of this one. Enjoy.
I consider myself good on my feet. I actually enjoy a dynamic conversation where it just goes where it goes. So whatever questions come up for you, please feel free and we'll see where the journey takes us.
I usually like to ask one question first, and that is, because you are guiding people specifically, and I feel like money could possibly be an expression of one's inner voice and an expression of themselves. You had to go through a lot of things yourself in order to be able to guide people in this way. And so one of the first things that I like to ask is, when is the first time that you realized that you had this inner voice or inner guidance system that you were able to recognize and follow?
Interesting. I think there are two levels to this conversation for me. One is the inner voice that we all have that kind of narrates life, that negative kind of voice that we all hear, where it oftentimes takes the wind out of our sails. No, you're not smart enough. No, you're not good enough. No, you're not educated enough, or whatever that negative conversation is. So I didn't really recognize that particular voice until I'd say maybe 1994, somewhere around there. I was doing some personal development work, and that was one of the foundations of that organization, was that inner voice and how it impacts us. And what I think evolved from that was my being able to quiet that inner voice, just kind of let that inner voice be, and then connect to what I like to call my higher self, where when I am fully connected from my heart center and really grounded and present, then there's this connection to my higher self that sources me in all the conversations that I'm having. So when I'm not there, not connected, I'm just operating as anyone else might operate with, my thoughts and feelings and emotions and history and all of that. But there is, when I'm doing my work and really in a conversation that's important to me and important to the person that I'm having it with, that's where I will get connected. And it can happen in an instant. And I just suddenly, that's where that connection comes from. And for me, it's interesting because I've looked at this and I've known people who actually have a voice, they can hear words. For me, it's not a voice that I hear words. It is and I've struggled to define it and describe it. It's clairsentient, as I like to distinguish it, is I feel something. I'm just present to something, and what to say comes from there. So I'm not actually hearing the words in my head or from wherever they come from. I'm actually just present to something that sources then the words to come out of my mouth, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely, it does. I'm very similar. If you feel comfortable, would you mind talking about your upbringing a little bit and your relationship with these ideas as a child
Mm.
and how you came upon even having this language of higher self or source?
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, I think, for me, there are two different worlds. There was the world of when I was very young, and I think looking back, I was considered, or I would consider myself as a sensitive child. So I was very in tune with my emotions. I was very connected to animals. And I remember when we lost the first dog that I had, I was absolutely devastated and just inconsolable. And I remember my father, who I loved dearly, he's passed, but I loved my family dearly. But I remember my dad getting angry at me because I was inconsolable over the loss of my dog and saying, you need to get over this, you need to stop this, you need to get over this. And of course, for someone who's as a child in that place of vulnerability and that place of grieving and loss, that was one of the last things that I, wanted to hear. I needed to be told. Sorry, my little one is hearing food in the other room, but he was in a place from where he was raised, and he was, you got to move on, you got to get over it. And
Mhm.
I tried to put my big boy pants on and tried to put on that face of, okay, it's okay. But I knew it wasn't. And so looking back, I can see that there was this sensitivity, there was this connection to other living beings. And I remember once when I was a little kid, I found this nest of little uh, s- uh, English sparrows, which were very common in Los Angeles, just little brown birds. This nest of babies, 7 of them. And I remember taking the nest, the mother was gone, it was on the ground, and I thought, okay, I'm going to raise these little chicks. And my mom and dad said, no, they're going to die. There's nothing you can do. I said, no, I want to feed them. And I learned how to, get a little dropper, and I was feeding them. And I remember the couple of first one died, and I was devastated, and then buried it, and just so much emotion. But as time went on, they started to get bigger. And unfortunately, I lost all but one. And the last one that lived, I called Rodan. That I just wanted to name him Rodan. And I remember the day that Rodan flew away. And it was such an extraordinary experience for me because I had grieved the loss of his 6 siblings, but I really celebrated the fact that one survived and was now out in the world doing what it does. So it was very early on that I was connected to this sensitivity. And then as I got older, and certainly after 1994, when I really started to look inward and kind of broke out of the shell of, I'll use the word suppression, and I don't mean that in a negative, bad way. It's what a lot of people do. Suppression that I experienced growing up, where you're not supposed to do this, you're not supposed to do that, where I really started to flourish. And that's when I started to get more connected to myself, get connected to the spiritual side of my world, the energy that flows around us, and the people that were in my lives, and how I could impact them and they could impact me in a positive or negative way.
Yeah, I can't help but thinking about the story about the bird and how symbolic that is of
Mm.
rising above your mind or your circumstances and then like being liberated and how that kind of has a theme.
Yeah. And and I think it really was sourced from my higher self because there was nothing in my life experience up until that point that ever would have pointed to you can actually raise these little baby chicks and you can have them flourish if if you put your mind to it. There was just nothing. And yet here I was throwing down the gauntlet saying, yeah, I'm going to raise these little chicks and going through what I went through with each and every one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. So what is your first encounter with being able to change your mindset? Like, what was that experience like?
I remember it vividly. There was a program. It was the first time I'd ever done any kind of self improvement or personal growth work at all. It was with an organization called Landmark Education. Just unbelievably enlightening to me. And I remember I was so jaded and so just angry in life. And somebody had shared it with me and said, I'd love for you to come and at least find out about it. They've got an introduction to it and it's free. And just, you can find out what might be available. And I'd love to share it with you. And I was just so cynical. And I remember going to this introduction and sitting there, kind of like, all right, fine, I'll just listen to this loser talk. And I was just so bad. And I remember he said at one point, I'm going to write something on the board. I want you all to close your eyes. I want you to write something on the board. And I want you, when I say open your eyes, just open your eyes and just you tell me what it says. And so we all close our eyes and I open my eyes and I look at the board and it says bird in the hand. And he says, okay, so what does it say on the board? And somebody says bird in the hand. I'm like, yeah, it's exactly what he says. He says, no, that's not what it says. I'm like, he's crazy. It says bird in the hand. I can see it. And he says, make sure you include everything. So this person he was interacting with said, oh, bird in the hand. And then you've drawn a box around it. And then there are two X's next to the box. He's like, okay, good. You've almost got it, but that's still not what it says. And I'm thinking, this guy's just a complete idiot. It says bird in the hand, box XX. And I remember how like entrenched I was in my thought and getting angry at the fact that he was insisting that that's not what it said. So then he invited this person to stand up, go up to the board, and point to each word as he read them. And so he wrote, bird in the hand. And in that instant, I knew there was a world that I was missing. There was a world that I was not seeing that was right there in front of my face, even in the face of my being so indignant that I had it right. I missed the extra the. And I thought in that moment, what else am I missing in my life? I need to shut up. I need to sit down and I need to start listening and learning. And so it was in that moment that that transformational journey started. And I would like to say that it's not stopped to this day. Every day for me is an adventure of what's next? What can I learn next? What can I take on next? What's the next path for me?
Yeah. So what was that first step after that moment that led you on the path that you're in now?
Well, I remember doing their foundational program called the Landmark Forum, and it was extraordinary for me. And the just what was opening up, what I was seeing about my past, what I was seeing about who I was, and what was limited by my beliefs. And so I decided to take their next course, which is their advanced course. And I remember sitting in the advanced course, and there was a break, and this woman who was on staff, Candace is her name, absolute extraordinary woman, walked up to the front of the room and I was watching her walk and I thought, wow, this is a powerful woman. I'm like blown away by who she is. And she turned around and she said, she was a hillbilly. She was from Arkansas. And I remember she's turned around and she says, if you want to learn, with her thick accent, which she just loved, so if you want to learn how to be a leader, I'm gonna show you how to do that. You want to do that, you come up and talk to me after this seminar. And I remember thinking to myself, I want to be just like her. I don't know what she has. I don't know where she got it, but I want it. And that was the path where I started working with her, training with her. It was a 6-month program, took that program, and then I went into the training program to lead that program. And I spent the next 5 years or so leading that program and training leaders, training people who wanted to be leaders in their own life. And it was amazing. At one point, I was accountable for the entire Southwest region of the United States. And it was really amazing for me. And that was, I think, the explosion of my personal growth because every time I was leading a program, I was growing. Every time I was interacting with someone, I was learning something. I was seeing something about myself that I'd never seen before. And it's carried on from there.
Yeah. What would your definition of being a leader be?
Someone who elevates others and isn't afraid to let those others surpass where you are in their own growth and development.
Yeah. Okay. So, how did you stumble upon leading people specifically with their money mindset?
Well, I was originally starting to coach people as a business coach or as just as a coach in general, where either somebody who had a business and they wanted to grow and expand their business, or somebody who just wanted to make more money, be more successful. I started taking on clients in that context. And in the very first few months, they were actually making more money. They were being more successful. And it was great. It was exactly what we wanted. The outcome that they wanted is what they were getting. But what I noticed was they were at the same place at the end of every month where they were before they started working with me. So if they were somebody that was just breaking even at the end of every month before they started working with me, they were still just breaking even though they were making a lot more money. If they were somebody that was always behind and trying to catch up, they were still behind and trying to catch up. Or if they were somebody that just always had anxiety or stress about money, they were still in that same place. And it didn't make any sense because they were making more money. So all of the evidence pointed to they should be in a much better place than they are, but they weren't. And it was across the board. It was consistent with everyone. And I thought, okay, there's something going on here that's undistinguished or uncovered, yet to be uncovered. And so I started to look at it and I started to study it and I started to think about it and just cogitate on it and really explore it as I was talking with my clients. And over the course of, I'd say the next 2 years, I discovered two things. And the first one was what I coined as we all have a financial thermostat. And that financial thermostat regulates and determines how much money we can earn, how much money we can keep, as well as our thoughts, feelings, and emotions around money. And then the second thing were the four keys that we needed in order to reset our financial thermostat. So I started to implement those distinctions with my clients and the results were extraordinary. They were just off the charts. And so one client would start, and I let them know what I was doing. I said, okay, I'm putting this in. Let's see how this goes. They started to get these great results. And they're like, oh my gosh, I've got a friend, I've got a client, I've got a business associate. They need to do this. Will you work with them as well? And it started to just kind of naturally evolve into this program. And then I sat down one day and I started to write out a syllabus and a program and started leading it. And it was at that point that I became a money mindset expert, and that was my focus. And that's what I've been doing ever since.
Could I ask you, when you were doing that with other people initially, what was your relationship with money then at the beginning of
Oh,
knowing?
I was in the same situation they were. I was discovering what blocks I had in the flow of money, what mindsets I had around money that were limiting my own beliefs and my own success. And so as I was delivering the program, I was actually doing the program. And so it had the same impact on me that it had on my clients. And that's why it was such an extraordinary experience, not just for my clients, but for me as well.
Yeah, so you were teaching as you were learning.
Yes.
Yeah.
And creating the program that I was teaching and learning from. So it was this really amazing circle that just kept going, going in a circle and everyone was benefiting from it.
Right. So what was it that you found that was blocking people to get them back to the place that they started?
Well, it's a complex answer, but I'll give you the most fundamental part of it so that people can get a sense of what it is that the realm in which I work. So we live in a world where very few people, at least in my experience, and certainly in my lifetime, when I was a child, very few of us are taught about money when we're young. For me, it was a taboo subject. I never asked my parents about money. They never talked about money. If I asked somebody else about money, I was reprimanded you never talk about money. You never ask anybody how much they make or anything around money. And yet we grow up in this world where we're expected to understand money. Money is one of the, I think, singular things that we need to interact with and do interact with every day of our lives as adults. We can go through our whole lives without ever loving someone or being in a relationship with someone. We can go through our entire lives without ever working in a specific field. But we have to interact with money if we want to have a roof over our heads, if we want to have a car and food and those kinds of things. So it is a very, very integral part of our lives. And yet we have no idea how to interact with it. We have no idea what our relationship is with it, much less stepping out of that relationship and looking in at it to say, wow, this is going well, or this isn't going too well. So the first thing I have people do is explore that. Well, what is money? And as a universal band of energy, it's a currency. And as a currency, it flows very much like a current, electricity or water or wind. Now, money in my format flows in a distinct way. It actually flows in a circle. So it flows to us, through us, and away from us, and then back around to us, through us, and away from us with a reservoir on the side that we get to keep. Now, because money flows in this circle, blocks anywhere in that flow are blocks everywhere in that flow. So we can have blocks in the flow of money coming to us, and those would look like money is the root of all evil. I think people who have a lot of money are evil or bad or got it through nefarious ways. I think that the wealthy are bad. I think that I hate my boss. I hate the people above me or the people in power or the people of wealth. These are all blocks in the flow of money coming to us. Blocks in the flow of money going away from us can look like, oh, I hate paying my taxes, or I hate paying my fair share, or I hate paying what people are asking. I'm always trying to negotiate it down and getting a better price, or I never pay my bills on time. I want to hold on to my money. I really want to hold on to it. These are all blocks in the flow of money going away from us. And at the end of the day, they block the all overall flow of money coming to us, through us, and away from us, and that reservoir on the side that we get to keep. So the first thing after we've gotten this distinction down, the first thing we start to look at is the natural question of, well, how do I know what my blocks are? And then once I distinguish them, how do I clear them? So these are the two most fundamental things of what I work on. And the first one is, well, how do you know what your financial thermostat setting is and then what the blocks are? Well, just take a look at what your life looks like. If you're someone who can't earn more money, but you're trying desperately, you have a block in the flow somewhere around earning money. And that kind of determines where your financial thermostat is. How much are you able to make? How much of that are you able to keep? That'll tell you what your financial thermostat setting is right there. And then what are your thoughts, feelings, and emotions around money as you think about money, as you interact with money? Then we can start to quiet our minds and look at, well, what are my thoughts about money? What is my opinion about money? How do I actually feel about money? And when we get into that place and start to connect with money on that level, then we start to notice that inner voice starting to say the things about money that are the truth for us. Not the truth about money in general, but the truth for us around money. So an example from my life was when I was 6 years old, we were watching this show, which was very popular at the time, called Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. I'm dating myself here. And it was all about, they did an expose every week on some family that was very wealthy. And generally it was kind of like, ooh, cool. They pull back the curtain and get to see into the world of these wealthy people. Well, in this particular episode, it was not just that they were wealthy and successful, but their lives were a mess, that they were unhappy. It was just a broken family. And at the end of the episode, my mom says, very nonchalantly, without any agenda, she says, I never want to have that kind of money. You'll lose your whole family. And in that instant, that block in the flow got set in my mind as a 6-year-old boy. I didn't realize it. I didn't know it. It was just subconsciously, but I knew I never wanted to have too much money because I will lose my whole family. And so from that day on, that glass ceiling was in place. That financial thermostat setting was there. And it wasn't until I started doing this education, so I created it and started applying it to my own life, that I was able to see that and then clear that block in the flow. So the next question, how do we clear these blocks in the flow? I can take you through the 3-step process if you'd like.
Absolutely. Why not?
Okay. Great. So the first step is to identify, recognize whatever that specific block is. I don't want to have that much money. I don't want to have that much money because I'm going to lose my family. That was the block for me. For some people, it may be money's the root of all evil. I don't want to become a bad person. Money doesn't grow on trees. Money's hard to come by. I'll never be wealthy. Whatever it is for you, you can start to ruminate and look into it and feel into, oh, that's what it is for me. There'll be many of them, but the one that comes to the top is probably the most predominant one. So in that moment, you want to stop and acknowledge it and own that that's been your conversation. Wow, I can own that for the last 20 years, 25 years, I've had this conversation that if I make a lot of money, I'll lose my whole family. Okay, I can own that. I can acknowledge that. Now I'm not validating it. I'm just acknowledging that it's there. It's kind of like in AA, somebody saying, "Hi, my name is Pericles and I'm an alcoholic." We're acknowledging that thing so that it comes to the forefront, right? It no longer has that dominion over us. So I can acknowledge this has been my conversation for the past however long it's been. That's step one. Step two, and this is the hardest step. It's the simplest step, but it's the hardest step. You then want to let that conversation go. Now, it's very simple because all you're going to do is say, I let go of that conversation. I release that conversation, however you want to say it, but it sounds something like this. I release that conversation into the care of the universe or into the care of God or into the care of the trees or the ocean or whatever. I release this conversation into the care of the universe. It no longer has dominion over me. It no longer has power over me. It no longer has space or permission to occupy space in my mind or in my world. I release you into the care of the universe. Now, it's that simple in the words coming out of our mouth, but it's also that difficult in that we've become very accustomed to this conversation. It's become familiar to us. It's kind of like almost like our right arm. And now we're going to take our right arm off and we're going to let it go. It's challenging to actually say the words and let it go. So if you find yourself having a struggle, it's totally fine. It's very natural for that because we have known it. We're familiar with it. It's comfortable. And to let it go may be hard. So keep working on it. Keep working on it until you're able to get it out and you feel a small, however small, a sense of release or relief, like, wow, I can feel it moving away. Okay, great. Now, in that moment, we're going to take step number 3. And that is, what is the new relationship you want to create with money right now? Freed up from that old conversation. What is money for you right now? Now, for me, in the moment it was, money flows to me easily and abundantly every single day. It's always short and sweet. Money flows to me easily and abundantly every single day. And then you want to feel it in your heart. You want to feel it in your body. You want to feel it in every fiber of your being, what it's like to see and feel and have money flowing to you abundantly and easily every single day. And keep that feeling present for as long as possible. Write it down on a Post-it, put it next to your bed, put it on your computer screen, put it on your mirror in the bathroom, put it on the car dashboard so that you're ongoingly reminding yourself of this new relationship to money. Now, we're doing this for 2 reasons. There's an energetics and then there's brain science. The brain science is we've been firing and wiring these neural pathways for ages, and they're very, very strong, like a channel that water runs through on the ground. And when we acknowledge and we release that old conversation, we're breaking that old neural pathway. We're actually trying to destroy it. And then when we create this new relationship to money, we've created a new baby, little tiny little, neural pathway. And it needs to be nurtured and it needs to be cared for, just like those baby chicks. And it needs to be loved and it needs to be given attention. And the more we do that, the stronger that neural pathway becomes and the weaker the old one becomes. And over time, the new neural pathway will become the predominant conversation. On an energetic side, vibrational frequency, law of attraction, all of those conversations, when we feel something, we're altering our vibrational frequency and suddenly we're going to attract more of that. So we're acknowledging and releasing the old vibrational frequency and we're now creating a new vibrational frequency and we're then vibrating in that frequency and keeping that frequency as much and as long as possible. Now, the last step, it's like step 3A, is now you want to go into the world and look for evidence of that new relationship showing up. And every time you see it, acknowledge it, celebrate it, pull it to you, be thankful for it, and feel it even more. And the more you do that, the longer you do that, you will look back and you will see that that is now your predominant conversation in life. I know it was a
Wow.
long way around answering your question, but I wanted to make sure I cover all the bases because I think those questions sometimes come up.
Yeah, those are fantastic. It's a great foundation to like go from here. So, I have some questions about the energetics a
Sure.
little, because you were describing it as a circle. So money comes to you and then it flows, and then you were talking about the reservoir that we get to keep.
Yes.
So I am curious about that which we get to keep,
Mm.
because it is somewhat of a stagnant energy, and the whole concept of saving for retirement and these whole things. I'm curious how you can describe that.
Yes, of course. Well, I think in general, if we look at it, most of us grow up in a world of money we don't distinguish it like this, but just money flows to us and then away from us. It comes to us, we earn it, and then it goes out. It comes to us and then it goes out. It comes to us and then it goes out. And we live in a world where looking like we've got a lot of money is more important than actually having a lot of money. So this reservoir on the side is almost non-existent for a lot of people. They don't really think about it. So money comes in, what can I do with it to look like I've got lots of money so people will think I'm wealthy, to think I'm successful, rather than money comes into me. Now, what am I going to do with it to have it be the best it can be in my life? Well, first of all, I'm going to start creating this reservoir on the side. I'm going to create a flow of money in that direction. And I'm going to start flowing as much of that money as I can every single day into that reservoir on the side. And then I'm going to expand my capacity as I understand money, whether it comes to investing or saving or growing that money. I'm going to educate myself and I'm going to expand my capacity around money so that I know exactly what I can do to improve my relationship with that money and have it grow. Now, I like to equate our relationship to money as a relationship to a significant other, because I think this is where people can really, might go clunk for them. Imagine if we related to money the way or to a significant other, the way most of us relate to money. Well, I want it when I want it. I want as much of it when I want it. I want it to give me what I want it to give me. And then when I'm not thinking about it, it's just out of my sight and out of my mind. I'm not thinking about it. But I want to show it off to everybody when I've got it. So everybody knows I'm really cool because I've got all this money. And I'm really not interested in beyond that. I just want it to make me look good. Well, if we related to our significant other that way, we probably wouldn't have a relationship for very long. But imagine if we related to money in a manner that was like this. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy you are in my life. I'm so honored and privileged and blessed that you are a part of my life. I love that you are here. I want to do everything I can to improve our relationship, to make our time together better for both of us. I want to expand my own ability to interact with you, to know you, to create a future with you, and build a life together that we both benefit from. That is, I think, a foundation for a really powerful relationship. Now, imagine if we were to transfer that to our relationship with money, where every time money shows up in our lives, we have that kind of appreciation. Every time we pay a bill with money, we're grateful for the fact that I have a roof over my house because of this money that I'm flowing away from me. And this money over here is going to my future, both in the long term, the medium term, and the short term. And I've got it all set up in a way that works for both of us. And I'm constantly got my mind on it. And I'm thinking about how can I be a better steward or a better partner in our relationship together? Imagine your personal relationship inside of that context would be extraordinary. So, this is the kind of world that you want to create for yourself because most of us don't even think about that reservoir on the side. We're just thinking about, I got to bring more in so I can spend more. Well, what if you were to bring more in so that you could create more wealth? That's the key. And that's the beginning of that channel of flowing money into that reservoir on the side. That was a long way around to answer your question, but it kind of triggered a bunch of stuff for me. And I wanted to make sure I covered all of it.
Thank you. Thank you for covering all that. Yeah. I like the analogy of comparing it to a relationship because it really is a relationship.
Yeah.
It's kind of a dance.
Yes.
And also reflective of like if you're not able to open up and receive in a relationship, you're probably not being able to open up and receive an energetic money exchange either.
Correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So it seems like it really does come down to the relationship with yourself and that self-worth, self-value piece.
Yes. And that's why my tagline is creating an empowering relationship with your money and yourself. Because what I found is in the decades that I've been doing this, as people start to get clearer about their relationship to money, they get clear about who they are in the world and what they want in their life and what that looks like. And suddenly the dynamics of all their relationships start to shift. And they see that, oh, money isn't going to give me joy. Money isn't going to buy me love or bring me happiness or satisfaction or fulfillment or security. They stop looking for money to provide them with things that it can't, very much like a relationship, with a significant other. If your significant other can't cook, you don't look to them to cook. If they can't fix the car, you don't look to them to fix the car. We know what their limitations are. There's nothing wrong with those. That's what they don't do. So I wouldn't look at them to do that. And we don't want to look at money to provide things that it can't provide either. And so when we start to get clear about that, our
Mm.
life looks different. And we start to find the peace, the joy, the satisfaction and fulfillment that we're looking for while being open to the money flowing to us that we want.
Yeah. Like a collaboration.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've heard that people say, like, because going back to the reservoir again, that it's important to know what you want to spend your money on, like very specifically. Is that true?
I believe it is. I think that if we know what so it would be kind of like, okay, I'm going on a road trip. Where are you going? I don't know. Now, there's sometimes we want to go on a road trip and we don't know. We don't care. We just want to get on the road and go. But if I'm saying I want to go to New York, right? And I have no idea that I want to go to New York. And it's a weird analogy, but if I want to get to New York, I've got to create a roadmap to get to New York. But if I don't have the destination in mind, there's no way that I'm going to be able to create a roadmap to get there. So having that destination is really important. And it allows us to create a target where we are now clear on, oh, I need this amount because I want this and this and this and this and this. These are all the things that I want in my life. Savings and all of it. These are all the things right now, not forever and ever, but for right now. These are the things. Now I know how much I need to earn in order to fulfill that. Whereas if we don't have that target, we're just working and struggling and money is just flowing away from us and disappearing like, water on the sand. It just evaporates into the ground. Whereas if we're clear about where we want money to go, where we intentionally are flowing our money, then suddenly things look different. We can look at it and say, oh, wait, I'm flowing money there. And I didn't even realize there was flowing money there. No, I'm not doing that anymore. I've got 20 streaming services that I don't even use and 4 other things that are just charging me every. Oh my goodness, I'm spending. And this is one of the things my clients find very quickly when I'm working with them. It's like, I'm spending all this money on things I didn't even realize I was spending. And they're saving hundreds of dollars just by cutting all those things out that they weren't using and didn't care about. Now, all of a sudden, they've got this extra money or this extra freedom from the burden of having to earn more money, and they can start flowing it in a different direction or flowing the creative channels because they're freed up from the burden of, oh, I've got to earn so much for things I didn't even know I'm spending it on. So, yes, having a target, having not just a target, but a specific area you want to flow money to, and how much for that money will make all the difference in the world.
Yes. And what are your thoughts on how this might connect of of keeping an open space for possibility, because maybe you do want money for this certain thing, but instead of receiving the money, you actually receive the thing that you were wanting the money for.
Yes. And this is actually called joy and happiness in the world that I work in, because people will say, and you're spot on with things as well. When I say that kind of 3A step that I was talking about, where we're watching for it to show up in our lives, we want to let go of it looking a certain way. It has to look a certain way. Like I want, let's just say I want to earn $1 million. It has to look exactly like this. Well, you've just pinched yourself off from all of the possibilities in the universe except one that you created using a mindset that got you where you are now that isn't where you want to be. So that's not a good roadmap to be working from. We can't get to a new place using the same thinking. We've got to create a new way of thinking or a new way of operating in our lives. So when you go into that third A step where we're watching in the world for it to show up, we're open to any and all possibilities being presented in our lives. Doesn't mean we take any and all possibilities, but we're open to them. I have people that I've worked with who've said, okay, I want more money. Great. And then a week later, we'll come back together and say, okay, where is money showing up? Well, it's not. And I can tell they've shut themselves down from money showing up. And so I'll say, you haven't seen money anywhere? Nowhere? And they're like, oh, well, I'll see money on the ground, but I'm not going to pick that up. I'm like, okay, good. You've just killed off money showing up in your life. And what happened in that instant was you shifted your vibrational frequency from, I want money to show up into my life, to, no, I don't want that money to show up in my life. Well, the universe doesn't make those distinctions. You either want money to flow into your life or you don't. One year, I found almost $800 in found money in my life, just going through my day, because I'm
Mhm.
always open to money showing up. And when I see it, I'll take it and I'll thank the universe for putting it in front of me and putting it in my life, and I'll be so grateful that it's there. And then I have a special vessel that I put it in every time I find it. And I cherish that vessel, not cherish it, but like I appreciate it and I honor it and I'm so happy for it. Then at the end of the year I count it up and then I decide what I'm going to do with it. But if you cut it off like that, you're basically shifting your vibrational frequency to, I don't want money to show up in my life. Now, some listeners may be thinking, yeah, but it's only a penny. Okay, well, let's play this out. A penny is 1/100th of a dollar. And that would be like going to my relationship scenario. I love my significant other, but they have the ugliest hands in the world. I hate that part of them. I'm not interested in that part. I don't want to see that part of them. It's just not something that I've been interested in. Well, that penny is a part of that dollar, just like those hands are part of your significant other. Imagine how your significant other would feel. If you don't love the whole and all the parts that make up the whole, you will never find someone who wants to be with you. They're not going to be attracted to you. Just like if you can't love all the parts of the dollar, all the parts of the $10 bill, $100 bill, etc., you're never going to find a place where money's going to want to be in your life. So love every element of it, love every part of it, and be open to any possibility that shows up. Explore it, look at it, and then choose. You know what? Thank you for putting this in front of me. I love this opportunity, but it's not for me at this time. So I'm going to let it go. There have been times when I've seen money on the ground and it's dangerous for me to pick it up. It's in the middle of traffic and I'm not going to go out in traffic and risk my life over something like that. But I will acknowledge it. I'll say thank you to the universe for showing me that money is everywhere in my life, abundantly and freely. And I'm going to let this be. And I thank you for putting it in front of me. That's the way to relate to it. That's a way that will empower you in your relationship to money. Did I answer your question? I think I did a long way around there.
Yeah, you definitely did. Yeah, it kind of makes it more fun, like almost like a game to be able to play with it like that and
Yes,
find it better
exactly.
in life. And
Exactly.
yeah, I've done that a little bit. There were moments where I found a lot of money. There were years when I was consistently finding a lot of money on the ground, and it's evidence. Yeah, that it
Yes. And we all know people like that. Well, I
works.
know somebody, if he were to trip over a bucket and fall down, it would be a bucket filled with money and he would fall into a hole filled with money. That's just the world he lives in. From a mindset perspective, money is everywhere in his life. Everything is an opportunity for more money. Now, that may not be your thing. So find what your thing is and embrace that and find your balance, find your connection with that from a heart center, and allow that to be what sources you as you go through your day.
Yeah. And okay. So how would you include things like credit cards and debt into the mix?
Well, I think this is a natural part of the world that we live in, where people are more interested in looking like they have wealth rather than having the wealth. And so we have limited means. I'm only making so much money, but I need to have this. So people think I have more money. So credit cards come into play. And so now, excuse me, we've got this credit card debt, which is a burden that we're carrying and dragging along, and ultimately becomes a block in the flow of money coming to us because it limits how much of that money coming to us can go to that reservoir on the side, because so much of it is going to paying down debt. And many times we are not paying enough to really make a dent. And we're looking at creating almost a sense of generational wealth where we could live our whole lifetimes and never pay it off. So I want to be two-headed about this, and I'm clear that there are some times when people are in a situation that's untenable and unexpected and catastrophic, and they go into credit card debt for that reason. And I'm not dismissing or diminishing that experience at all. I know there are people that truly are struggling, and this conversation can help and make a difference, but I'm not saying you've done anything wrong. I'm not saying that about anybody, whether you did credit card debt on your own just because you wanted to look good or not. I don't have an opinion or judgment about it. You do what you do. I'm fine. I'm neutral in that area. But for those of you who are interested in creating wealth and this conversation, then there are specific actions to take. And the only place to look is at ourselves. There's nowhere else in the world to look but in at ourselves for the life that we have right now. And I know that will trigger some people like, no, but so and so and such and such. It. No, I got left. Me personally, I got left after a 23-year relationship living in a foreign country by email. And yet my life is extraordinary because I say so, because that's the world I created. So I know what it is to live through adversity and come out on the other side. I'm not just speaking from a high place. I've been there. I'm dealing with the things that I deal with and creating the life that I want. So again, we're looking at ourselves as a solution to the problems and the reason why our life looks the way it looks. So credit card debt. This is again a conversation about where is your money flowing and where are you flowing it to, and what are the choices you want to make from this point forward. So if you've got a lot of credit card debt, you want to start looking at, okay, where am I spending money that I don't need to be spending money right now, that I can literally then siphon over to this debt and pay off that debt faster. And there are lots of different strategies that people share about paying off credit card debt. And if you've got multiple cards, find the card that has the highest interest rate and focus as much of money as you can towards that one and pay it off. And then pay as, the minimums or a little bit more than the minimums on the other ones in the interim while you're paying that one off, right? Pay that one off. Now, if that one's got the highest balance, maybe you look at one that's got a much lower balance and a slightly lower interest rate, but get it paid off quickly. Then take everything you were paying towards that card, then apply it to the next one. So you're now applying what you were applying to this card plus what you're applying to this card to that one new card. You're focusing more and more energy, more and more flow of money to that credit card, getting that one paid down. Then you do the same thing when that one's paid off, take all of that and then apply it to the next one on top of what you've already been applying to that. You're kind of creating this cascade effect where you're building how much you're paying down. But then it's important to get really clear on once those are all paid off and you've got all this money freed up, what are you going to do with that money now? What's your strategy? Where are you going to flow it? Because it'll be very easy to flow that money right back into debt in some other vehicle, right? We want to be cautious about that. That's why it's so important to reset your financial thermostat so that that money doesn't just disappear. This is one of the reasons 70% of all lotto winners go broke within the first 5 years is because their financial thermostat isn't set for them to have that kind of money. So they have all this money come in, but they're only set for this much, but they've got this much. Well, immediately that thermostat kicks in and it turns on the AC. It's got to cool the room back down. It's got to get rid of all that money, and they will start disappearing it and disappearing it and disappearing it until it's all gone. And the same thing will happen there. So you want, while you're focusing on bringing that debt down, and let me say something else about that, because we get what we focus on. And I've a lot of times people come to you, what do you want? Well, I'm focusing on getting rid of debt. I'm focusing on getting rid of debt, but they keep having more debt. We get what we focus on. So if we're focusing on paying down debt, the focus becomes debt. So debt needs to exist for us to have the thing to focus on that we want to focus on. So don't focus on debt, focus on building wealth. I'm building wealth. I'm building wealth. Part of building wealth is I'm paying off this debt, but that's not my focus. I've got a strategy and I've got an action plan and it's in place and it's happening. But what I'm focused on is building wealth, building wealth, building wealth. The debt will get handled inside of building wealth.
Yeah. I'm wondering, do you find that people perhaps stay within the debt because they don't really know what they want?
Yes. And I think sometimes it's the like air to a bird, water to a fish. We don't realize it's the world in which we're living. I remember for me, one of the conversations that I don't even remember who said it, but I remember when I was very young, somebody said, "You're always going to have debt. Don't worry about that. You're always going to have debt." So when I got out of college and I got my first credit card and I started building up credit card debt, and I was thinking, oh, that's getting pretty big. And I thought, oh no, you're always going to have debt. So I thought it was okay. Okay, I'm going to always have debt. Well, that was another block in the flow of money that I had to distinguish and complete and clear in order for me to pay off that debt, in order for me to start relating to money as, you know what? No, I don't always have to have debt. There are certain things that I can take out a loan for. If I buy a home, I'll take out a loan. I mean, that's debt, but that's collateralized debt. That's debt that has an asset attached to it. I would accumulate debt, and then basically I would justify it every time I'd look at my credit card balance. I would say, "Oh, it's okay. You know what? It's totally fine. I'm supposed to have debt. It's okay to have debt." Well, now I'm in a world of the debt that I have is my home, and that's it. And that's okay because I've got a debt that is actually outweighed by the asset. The asset has more value than the debt. And so for anyone looking at something, going into something where debt is part of the equation, you want to educate yourself around, okay, well, what does this look like? What is the debt that I'm going to accumulate versus what I'm getting on the other end of it? Cars are a great example of this. A lot of times people just say, I want a new car, but they lose so much money in value. The minute you drive it off the lot, you're losing 10, 15, sometimes 20% of the value of the asset that is then a depreciating asset over time. Now, I'm not an accountant. I'm not a money manager, but that's very simple math. Do you want to do that, or do you want to go buy a used car? It's a couple years old. The depreciation, the major front end depreciation is already gone. You're going to get it for a lot less, and it's going to be almost like a new car anyway. So start to look at what are the choices you're making before you go into debt. Are you out to dinner with your friends and family, right? And you want to be the sport. You feel like, I'm just going to whip out my credit card and I'm going to pay for everybody. You know what? No, I don't have the money to do that right now. So I'm going to say no. And I'm going to pay my share. And that's it, because that's what I'd planned for. I work with a lot of people that they keep going into debt because they have to. I have to. My best friend's getting married, but they're across the country and she wants me to be there and I have to be there even though I have no money. I have no way of getting the money to fly there or to stay there or any of that. And they live in a world where they have to. Well, you know what? If they were truly your best friend and you said to them, I don't have the money and I love you and I can't be there, but I'll be there in spirit. If they didn't understand that, they're not your best friend. There's something else. There's somebody who just wants another body there, who they can say, "Ooh, they flew across country to be here, to be
Mhm.
at my wedding." That's these are the conversations. While they're challenging, they're not easy. These are the conversations we want to start having with ourselves if we're truly interested in building wealth, because the people around you will understand. You know what? I'm not going to go out to dinner tonight because I don't have the money and I really am saving for this or that. They'll understand. Great, let's go hang out at the house. We'll order pizza. That's a true friend,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And then saving up for those special occasions and having the money in the bank already. I've got a system set up where when I go on vacation, it's already paid for. I'm putting money away every single month so that when it's time for me to go on vacation, I just look at what's in the account and say, okay, I've got this amount of money to spend on my vacation, not spending any more. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it on a credit card that I get points or cash back on, pay it all off at the end of the month. And I've got 3% bonus on money I was going to spend anyway that's sitting in the bank. So my vacation cost me 3% less, or I got all these points because I put it on the card and then I paid the card off at the end of the month with the money that was sitting in the account that was earning interest all that time as well. So there are strategies that we can start to put into place where we're now building wealth instead of creating debt.
Yeah, I've never really thought about this before, but is there a difference between earning money and making money?
Oh, that's a good question. I think that in general, if we relate to what we do as a dollar for hours conversation, we're limiting what we can create in our lives. Whereas if we look at it from the perspective of, I do something I love and I'm actually bringing in money for it by doing what I do, I love what I do, and I'm earning money for it. I'm getting paid to do this. And that money allows me to create the kind of life that I want. It allows me to build the wealth that I'm looking for. It allows me, even if it's a stepping stone to where you're going. So someone may be sitting listening to this thinking, well, I don't like my job. It's not what I want to do. I get that. I can appreciate that. Can you find a way to appreciate the job, the work that you're doing now, so that it isn't a negative in your life? It isn't bringing that negative vibrational frequency into your life, but you're actually like, wow, you know what? This isn't what I want to do. And I'm clear about that, but I'm grateful for the opportunity that it's providing me, that it's allowing me to go to school part time or to build my business part time on the side. And it's paying everything that I need right now to be paid for. I'm grateful for that. I'm thankful for that. And then when you're ready to make that transition, you make that transition inside of that gratitude space instead of a resentment space or a space of, I hate being where I am. That is never going to be a place where you're going to be nurtured, where you're going to thrive. So look for any way you can shift your mindset and your energetic flow around what it is you're doing so that it's positive and uplifting rather than negative. And that goes for the people around you as well. And this is another very challenging conversation for people. They start to look at the world that they live in. They start to look at their relationship with money, and then they start to look at their relationship with others. And they're like, wow, I've got this person in my life and they're just negative all the time. Well, you have three choices. You can leave it alone and continue to let that negativity be in your life. You can alter it, start having new conversations, start putting boundaries in where they get clear about how they can interact with you and how they cannot interact with you, or you complete the relationship and move on. Those are the three choices. Whatever choice you choose is totally up to you. If you choose to keep the relationship, stop complaining about it because you've chosen to stay in that relationship. So you've given up the right to complain. Now you can complain about it, it's just going to drag you down more, but stop complaining about it and just let it be. If you work on altering the relationship, remember, you've trained everyone in your life to interact with you the way they interact with you. It's not a surprise there are no users in your life simply because they're users. They're users in your life because you've allowed them into your life and you've given them what they've wanted to a certain extent. So now you're going to retrain them. And I know that sounds a little weird. It's not like you're training a dog, but in a sense it is. We train people how to interact with us. If people treat you with disrespect, it's because you've allowed them to treat you with disrespect. If people don't appreciate your time or don't appreciate being with you, it's because you haven't trained them to do that. And it's just a matter of putting those boundaries in place so that they're clear about how they can interact with you. Gossip comes to me and dies. It doesn't exist in my world. Drama doesn't exist in my world. I'm just not interested in it. And people know that. People don't bring drama to me. People will bring a problem to me that they're committed to solving.
Yeah.
They won't bring drama just to bring drama, because just not going to happen here. There's no oxygen around me for drama or for gossip, those kinds of things.
Yeah. So the reflection of your relationship with yourself is a reflection of your relationship with others, which is a reflection of your relationship with money.
Absolutely right. You've drawn the perfect circle. And it's again that circle. It's awesome. Great work, Whitney.
Okay. Yeah. Excellent. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you feel would be important to share, like on your mind or your heart?
I I think it's worth repeating. I don't know if we've actually said it like this. Always operate from your heart center. Always stay connected to your higher self. When we go into any interaction, it's so funny. I'm saying this, and now my little one wants to come up and share. Forgive me while he jumps up. He likes to sit right next to me. He's part of my heart connection. Um, when we're connected to our higher self through our heart, whether it's God or the universe, whatever that is for you, when we've got that connection, we have everything we need. We have everything we need. There's nothing else that you'll ever need. It's right here. We have a lot of people will spend their lives searching for and adding things to their lives to find what they want. And in the work that I do, it's actually we're shedding all of that stuff. Because when we get back to that source of our connection with our higher self, we find true love and true joy and true satisfaction and fulfillment. And then if you look at it, at the end of the day, that's what most of us want money for, is all of those things, which money can't provide us. But if we have it right now, without the money, imagine what life would be like when we do have the money. We've already got it. We're already there. I've already got the love and joy and satisfaction and fulfillment in my life. Now I've got money flowing into my life. There's a whole new relationship with it. There's a whole sense of appreciation and wow, what can money actually provide me? And then we're looking at life through a new prism, through a new set of glasses that creates a world that we never thought was possible. So if I were to leave you with something, I think it would be that is find that sense of joy, fulfillment, satisfaction, and happiness right here, right now, and then see what happens as you go through life because you'll have everything you need already. Now, life is just an adventure.
Ooh, I love that. Yeah. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
So I have one last question that I usually ask to wrap up, and it could be a sentence, a word, or it could go on for a little while, and either way is fine. But if your inner voice had a billboard, what would it say to the world?
Never stop learning.
Mhm.
It really is that simple. And it's got a lot of different ways. Never stop growing, never stop expanding, never stop looking for what's next. Never stop the expansion. We're either expanding or we're contracting. And if we're in that world of expansion, life can just get better.
Well, thank you so much for joining me and all of your wisdom. I really enjoyed this a lot.
Thank you, Whitney. It was my pleasure thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for joining me this week. If you're listening and you like what you hear, please consider subscribing and rating this podcast, as it really helps get this podcast out to other people who might be interested in hearing it but don't know about it yet. And also, if you'd like to contact me or reach me, you can reach me at unconditioningpodcast@gmail.com or unconditioningpodcast on Instagram. Thank you so much, and until next time, stay tuned in to you.